Hello, I'm Shreya Inuzuka, and I'm the author of original fantasy short stories. If you enjoy this video, please support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I truly appreciate your support. It really helps the channel to grow. And now, let me take you away into the enchanted, magical realm of fairy. The Goblin King by Shreya Inuzuka. The northern part of fairyland is called Adanya and is ruled by Queen Tatiana. Her rule over the land of goblins is somewhat cursory, as each subdivision is sovereign unto itself, although the ruling lord or lady was still subject to the High Queen of Adanya. The lord of Goblinland was Lord Karnak, even though he considered himself king of the goblins. He was a powerful magician. There were rumors that he was a necromancer, which meant he used the black arts to conjure the dead. Lord Karnak was considered a most powerful mage and practiced his sorcery in the undercroft of his castle, Hobgoblin Hall. It was said that he had a pact with the devil and could raise a magical army of the dead to aid him whenever needed. And when he was done with them, the army would dissolve back into the earth. Lord Karnak was also a master at glamour magic. Unwilling to face his true image as a goblin, he had created a spell of glamour to hide what he truly was, a hideous goblin. His glamour magic allowed him to interact with others without putting them off by his true and disgusting appearance. When he presented himself under the guise of glamour, he wore his hair long and black, and when he pulled it back, it gave his features a sharp, ruthless handsomeness. His chest, when bare, was muscular and broad, marred only by several battle scars across his left breast. He wore a sword at his side, and many times opted to wear a blue and green tartan kilt, feeling as if this made him appear more respectable. His reign as king of the goblins had been a long one, since there was no goblin who was able to best him in battle, nor could they compete with the magic of his dark fairy arts. Malignia had come to him with a proposition many years ago to steal the infant son of the human family that was responsible for clear-cutting the enchanted oak forest that ultimately destroyed her older sister Guyana. He knew it took quite a bit for Malignia to approach him. It was well known that fairies were loath to interact with orcs or goblins, especially if the fairy was of noble blood, as Malignia was. Granted, she had abdicated her position as Princess Majestic on the Sealy court, after her sister Tatiana banished her upon learning of her association with the Bone Witch. Even though Malignia was now aligned with the unseelie court, she still was of noble blood and had a great disdain of goblins and orcs. This is where his glamour magic was extremely helpful. Royal fairies were known for their delicate beauty and aesthetic taste. The sight of a goblin was thought to be too disturbing, and so they were socially shunned, even at the yearly gathering of all the fae. It was still being debated whether orcs and goblins were fairies. As far as the royal court was concerned, they viewed them as a subspecies, not capable of higher thought. In fact, they considered them quite stupid, as though they were cunning and sly, which meant you had to watch your back when around them. When Malignia first approached Lord Karnak with her plans of stealing the human baby He was surprised and rather skeptical, as he knew she was aware of the Goblin War that he had waged against her father some 100 years back. It had been Lord Carnack's wounded pride that had instigated the war after Princess Guyana rejected him as a suitor. Glamour magic had made him appear handsome at first to her, but it did not take Guyana long to unmask his deception. When she spurned him, his anger rose to such a degree he swore revenge. It was not the loss of her love that infuriated him, for his emotions did not go beyond lust. It was the future position of king that he was after. He knew that someday Guyana would be queen of Adania, and he intended to rule at her side. But once his duplicity was revealed, however, his plans were dashed, and that is when he declared war against the Seelie court. As far as Lord Carnack was concerned, orcs and goblins had gotten a bad rap from the Seelie court. He believed the spurning of goblins was not only due to their hideous appearance, but was also driven by jealousy of the great amount of wealth that they had acquired through mining, along with the dwarves. In essence, goblins were the bankers of fairyland, and as such were looked upon as miserly and power-hungry. Carnack did not consider that their overall bad temper and calculating approach to everyone and everything just might be the real reason that they were spurned and overall not trusted. The campaign he waged against the king of Adania was not well thought out, and in fact was the result of ego gratification. His knee-jerk reaction to Guyana's rejection of him made his approach hot-headed and poorly thought out. He did not take into consideration the sheer numbers of warrior elves and pixies that the king had at his disposal. His warrior elves carried dragon-line flags, indicating that they were earth elves. They were not only excellent trackers, but quite sturdy in stature, unlike other elven clans that tended to be tall and willowy. Even though the earth elves had more girth and were more of a match for the goblins, it was the pixies that did them in. There were hundreds of the pesky creatures, clinging to each goblin, poking and prodding their sharp little thistles into eyes, ears, and nose. The hideous goblins were overwhelmed with them and ran off shrieking, trying to run from their tormentors. After this last humiliation, Lord Carnack was forced to retreat. He had been waiting ever since for the opportunity to get revenge. That opportunity came in a most surprising way. Who would have guessed one of the royals would seek his help for their own gain? He believed in the old saying, "Keep your fey friends close, but keep your fey enemies closer." He knew Malignia was no friend, and in fact was historically his enemy. However, her offer was quite tempting. If he aligned with her to steal the crown, she was offering him not only equal status in fairyland, but also access to the enchanted spring. This spring was of great interest to him, as he was aware of its enchanted properties. He felt if he had access to this spring, that the imbibing of its waters would significantly enhance his magical abilities. But more importantly, his intention was to make money off of it by charging a bag of gold for its use. He knew this would not go well with the Seelie court, as they were the stewards and protector of nature, and believed in their code of conduct that nature should not have a price tag and should be free to all. In fact, it was a sore spot of the Fae that those humans that loved money were not in agreement to this way of thinking and seemed to go out of their way to exploit all natural resources. Lord Karnak had accepted Malignia's offer and had decided that he would sacrifice his own son to be the changeling replacement for the human baby. It was his plan to use his goblin son to be his eyes and ears in the green world of humans. He hoped to discover the location of the ancient fairy spring that had found its way hundreds of years earlier into the heart of the enchanted forest. This magical spring could extend one's life by hundreds of years and enhance one's psychic and magical abilities. This was why Lord Karnak had his eye on finding that spring. The very reason Queen Tatiana was attempting to work with humans was to teach and train them to be good stewards of the earth. For in truth, whatever happens to nature in the green world eventually is reflected on the fairy side of the gate. As Alice found out in Wonderland, that Wonderland is located just on the other side of the mirror, and that mirror reflects on both sides. Humans and Fae are intricately connected to nature, and as far as the Seelie Court is concerned, the destruction of Mother Nature is coming to the tipping point of no return. Queen Tatiana knows it is imperative for their own survival to teach the humans how to be good neighbors. After all, the Fae had been called the good folk for centuries. It was now time to teach humans the way of the Fae.